It was Christmas night 2023. I was 26 years old, and after spending the entire day with my family at my sister's house in a quiet part of Wisconsin, I finally decided to head home. My name's Jake Miller, and I live alone in a small rental house just outside of Madison. My plan was simple: drive home, change into something comfy, heat up some leftovers, and maybe watch one of those cheesy holiday movies everyone pretends not to like. The drive took about an hour. The roads were dead empty, not a single car in sight. It was snowing lightly and the sky had that dark bluish tint it gets just after sunset. Streetlights were on, but they didn't help much. Everything looked frozen in place, like time had stopped. If it hadn't been Christmas, I probably would have found it all a little creepy. It was too quiet. No dogs barking, no people walking, nothing. Just snow and silence. I pulled into my driveway around 8:15 p.m., the tires crunching, over fresh snow. As I got out, I noticed how cold it was. My breath came out in thick clouds and the air had that sharp, dry bite. I unlocked the side door that led through the garage and stepped inside. I turned on the hallway light and froze. There were papers all over the floor, my mail. I had left it in a neat stack on the kitchen counter before leaving that morning. Now it was spread across the floor like someone had gone through it. At first I figured maybe I knocked it over in a rush before heading out and didn't notice, but something about it didn't sit right. Still, I didn't panic. I picked everything up, put it back on the counter, and walked through the house, turning on the lights. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. I live alone. Things get messy. No big deal. Eventually, I settled onto the couch and turned on a Christmas movie. One of those goofy ones Netflix pumps out every year. I wasn't really watching it, though. I kept hearing these sounds. Little noises like creaking wood or the soft click of something shifting. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. Old homes make weird sounds, right? But every time I paused the movie to listen, it went completely quiet. I'd sit there holding my breath, waiting to hear it again, but nothing. Then the moment I hit play, I'd hear another faint noise. Just enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Still, I kept watching, trying to ignore it. I figured I was just tired from being around people all day. After about 2 hours, I turned off the movie, shut off the downstairs lights, and headed upstairs to my bedroom. That's when things really got strange. The moment I walked into my room and turned on the light, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't explain it right away, but something had changed. The blanket at the foot of my bed had been folded differently. My closet door, which I always keep shut, was open just a few inches. My desk chair was pulled out slightly. None of it was dramatic. Just off. I stood there, frozen. My heart started to race. I backed out of the room and into the hallway, my eyes scanning every shadow. I tiptoed to the top of the stairs and looked down into the darkness below. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound brave. "Is someone there? I've already called the cops." I hadn't. As soon as I said that, I realized how stupid it was to say it out loud. If someone was in my house, I had just let them know I was scared and alone. I turned and ran back toward my room, planning to lock the door and actually call the police this time. But I didn't make it. From downstairs, I heard a sudden burst of movement. Fast footsteps across the living room floor. I whipped around and ran to the railing. I couldn't see much in the dark, but I saw my Christmas tree shaking. Then I saw something, or someone, move. A shadowy figure darted out from behind the tree and ran toward the kitchen. I flew down the stairs yelling, "Hey, get out of here!" By the time I got to the kitchen, the back door was wide open. Cold air rushed in. Snowflakes blew across the tile floor. Whoever it was had already vanished into the night. I stood there, frozen, staring out into the darkness. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. When the police arrived about 15 minutes later, they checked the whole house. Nothing had been stolen. No signs of forced entry. Just an open door and my shaken nerves. They said maybe the person broke in earlier and hid when they heard me come home. That made sense, I guess. But it didn't explain everything. For one, I was home for over 2 hours before I saw them run. Were they just hiding somewhere the whole time? Maybe in the closet in my room? Or behind the couch while I watched TV? And what about those noises? They weren't just creaks. The more I thought about it, the more I remembered the rhythm. Like slow, careful footsteps. Someone trying not to be heard. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up in bed with the lights on, replaying everything over and over. The scariest thought wasn't that someone had broken in. It was the idea that they might have been in the same room with me. Watching me. Maybe even standing behind the tree while I laughed at the dumb movie. It made me sick to think about. I changed the locks the next day, bought new security cameras too. But even now, months later, I still can't shake the feeling. Sometimes, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and swear I hear something in the hallway. Once I found the closet door open again even though I was sure I had closed it. Nothing's been taken, I haven't seen anyone. But little things keep happening, small enough that I can't prove anything. But big enough to keep me on edge, like, last week I found a spoon on the kitchen floor. I hadn't used one all day. Then there was the time my front door was unlocked in the morning, even though I know I locked it the night before. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Or maybe that person came back. The police didn't help much. They said without evidence there's not much they can do. I get it. But it doesn't make me feel any better. I used to love Christmas. Now it just reminds me of that night. Of standing in my own kitchen, heart pounding, staring into the cold, dark yard while someone ran away from my home. From me. And what scares me most isn't what happened that night. It's what didn't. Because whoever it was didn't want to steal anything. They just wanted to be there. And I don't know if they ever really left. My name's Tyler and I'm 33 now. This happened in December 2022, just before Christmas. Back then I didn't really get excited about the holidays anymore. You know how it is. When you're a kid, Christmas is magical. But once you grow up, it just feels like another week, except with a little more stress and family noise. That year, my Aunt Sarah was hosting the family Christmas get-together out in the quiet little town of Pine Hollow, Pennsylvania. It's one of those places with more trees than people. I love my family, but our gatherings get loud and crowded real fast. So instead of staying at her place with 10 other people packed into 3 bedrooms, I rented a small cabin nearby through a vacation rental app. The cabin was simple, nothing fancy. Just wood walls, a little fireplace, and 1 bedroom. It sat about a 10-minute drive from my aunt's place, deep in the woods off a narrow dirt road. I didn't think much of it when I booked it. It looked cozy and quiet. That's all I wanted. Got there a few days before Christmas and spent the first 2 days visiting with family. It was actually pretty nice. I saw cousins I hadn't talked to in years. We played games, ate too much food, and laughed a lot. But by Christmas Day, even more relatives had shown up. At one point, there were probably 30 people in the house. Kids running around, adults talking over each other, and no room to sit anywhere. So after Christmas dinner, around 6:30 or 7, I said goodbye and headed back to my cabin. It was already dark when I drove down that winding road. The cabin sat at the edge of a thick forest with no neighbors in sight. The only sound was the wind through the trees. I pulled up, headlights shining on the porch, and that's when I noticed something weird. There were footprints in the snow. Fresh ones. They led from the road right up to the front door. I thought maybe the owner had stopped by to check something. The prints didn't go anywhere else, just straight to the door and back again. No sign anyone had gone inside. I stood there for a moment looking around, but everything was quiet. No cars, no movement, just me in the snow. I shrugged it off, went inside, dropped my jacket on the couch, and sat down to rest. I thought about texting the cabin owner, but figured if it had been something important, he would have messaged me. After a few minutes, I started to doze off in the armchair. Then I heard the doorbell ring. I jumped awake, heart pounding. It was almost 8 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door, rubbing my face to wake up, and opened it. There was a man standing there. Medium height, black hair, wearing a brown jacket that looked a little too big for him. He smiled quickly, not warmly, just like he was pretending, and said, "Hi, I'm the owner of the cabin. Just wanted to check on a few things. He reached out to shake my hand. Still groggy, I shook it and let him talk. He asked if everything was working okay, if the heat was good, and then said he just needed to look around real quick. I didn't even think. I just moved aside and let him in. Soon as he stepped inside, something felt off. He didn't really look around like someone checking on their property. He just stood in the living room, glancing at the walls and moving slowly, like he didn't know what he was looking for. And then I realized it was Christmas Day. Why would anyone come check a rental on Christmas night? That didn't make sense. He kept walking around, not saying much, barely looking at anything. The longer he stayed, the more I noticed how fake his calmness was, like he was acting. My skin started to crawl. Trying to sound casual, I said, "Hey, do you mind coming back tomorrow? My girlfriend and a couple friends are supposed to stop by any minute." He stopped, slowly turned to look at me. His face changed. The fake smile was gone. Now he just looked angry. Without a word, he walked over to the front door. I thought he was leaving, but he didn't. He reached out, closed the door behind him, and locked it. My stomach dropped. I felt this cold, hard knot in my chest. I didn't wait to see what he'd do next. I ran straight into the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. He was at the door within seconds, turning the knob, trying to get in. Then came the pounding. Hard, heavy hits against the door. I looked around the room. No phone, no car keys. Both were in my jacket out in the living room. My heart was racing. I knew I couldn't just sit there. There was a small window at the back of the room, the kind with a metal handle you push open. I ran to it and cranked it as fast as I could. Behind me, the door started to crack and creak from the force of his hits. I squeezed myself through the window and dropped into the snow. The cold hit me like a slap, but I didn't stop. I ran into the woods, slipping on ice and branches, not even caring where I was going. Once I was deep in the trees, I turned back. I could see the cabin through the branches, and just then, the man ran out the front door. He stood on the porch looking around, but it was dark. I was far enough in the woods that he couldn't see me. He stayed out there for a long time, at least 20 minutes, just pacing around, watching the trees like he expected me to pop out. Then he got into a dark car parked behind the trees and drove off. I waited a few more minutes to be sure he was gone, then ran back to the cabin, grabbed my phone and keys, and called 911. The police showed up about 30 minutes later. The real owner of the cabin came out to talk with them, and that's when everything hit me. The man who came to the door wasn't him. He had no idea who it was. Nothing had been taken, and the door wasn't broken, which meant this guy had planned to get in without raising alarms. He probably knew it was a rental and thought I'd be an easy target. What he planned to do, after getting inside, I try not to think about that. He didn't take anything. He didn't even search the place. He just wanted in, and got angry when I tried to send him away. That night still haunts me. The image of him locking the door behind him. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Since then, I've been a lot more careful. I don't open the door unless I'm sure who's there. I double-check locks, windows, everything. That little cabin in Pine Hollow almost became the last place I ever saw. Christmas isn't about presents or decorations anymore. Not for me. It's the night I learned how fast something normal can turn into something terrifying, and I'm just glad I made it out.